Coming up on No Pulp, two of the greatest programs historically in college football squared off this weekend. Ohio State and Notre Dame. Touchdown Jesus had his hands in the air, but for the wrong team when it mattered most.
Somebody who didn't have a touchdown Jesus up, Colorado and Sanders. Are they fraudulent after a blowout at Oregon? And is Oregon and Bo Nix legit?
Colorado might have been fraudulent. We'll also tell you who else is fraudulent in the world of college football. We've got a special guest in the juicer, and Ian Nicholas will be encouraged to bark tonight. A whole lot more coming. Welcome to No Pulp.
Kansas State has been on fire this year.
Missouri is one of the most fraudulent teams in college basketball.
And it was proved
They're not going to fire him. He's the best player in program history.
Side to Lawrence for the win! Yes! He got it!
She is the Shohei Ohtani of college softball. This is a team that's potentially going to be a top 10 team in the country.
How you feeling?
I'm excited to win the juicer.
LSU has captured its very first national championship.
Hello and welcome to No Pulp inside our CitrusTV studios. I'm Andrew Selover. He's Ian Nicholas. And Ian, we have a whole lot to get to inside the world of college football tonight.
Oh, it was a fantastic weekend. You couldn't script it any better. I don't know how we had the opportunity to talk about it. They picked us, and we're going to try to break it all down.
We're the lucky ones, and at some point you have to sit back and relax and just marvel at college football and the great games that you're handed to watch. We were treated to a special one on Saturday night in South Bend. Notre Dame and Ohio State, a rematch from a couple years ago, a low-scoring battle, and again it proved to be that good offense, good defense, for the most part good coaching, but at the last second, the Buckeyes came back and stole one away from the Irish, Ian.
Well, first of all, you talk about good coaching, and Andrew, I couldn't disagree more. Marcus Freeman, a defensive wizard, they say. 10 men on the field in the final 2 plays of the game on the goal line? I like you, Coach Freeman, but you can't do that. And then Ryan Day. This was supposed to be about Kyle McCord, that guy being that dude in the waning moments. But instead, he's challenging Lou Holtz after the game? Come on, Coach Day. Keep it to your players.
Coach Day knew what he was doing, Ian. He was challenging his players for the rest of the season. He was fed up with everybody saying that he is not the man for the job in Columbus. And his man, Kyle McCord, was that guy in the final drive of the game. 3 seconds left, and the Buckeyes steal it. But you mentioned Coach Freeman. I think that Marcus Freeman is a great coach.
Okay.
He's proved a lot at South Bend.
Has he?
But two of the biggest mistakes you could ever make as a young head coach. The screen pass on second down late in the game. Can't do that.
Clock
Can't
management
afford
101.
to not take away another timeout from the Buckeyes. And you mentioned it. After a timeout, 10 men on the field. How is that even possible?
Especially after you call the timeout, like you said, you have to be more composed. But it does show you, although I'm not the biggest Ryan Day fan in the world, one guy knows how to coach in big games, another guy does not. Marcus Freeman has to get his footing under himself in year number 2. He's a good young coach. Deion Sanders, also new to his role as Colorado's coach, maybe not on the young side. He likes to talk, so does Dan Lanning. These two were barking all week long, but it was a one-sided affair, Andrew. 42-6, Oregon was heavily favored, and they smoked the Buffs. And all the steam that was in this engine for Colorado is kind of deflated a little bit, right?
No Travis Hunter again, and the Buffaloes really needed him. And it almost felt coming, Ian, because last week Colorado was not on its A game against Colorado State. You could argue that really the Buffaloes should have lost that game, and then a week later, really, you see all the weaknesses exposed in one section of 60 minutes of football.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Colorado simply does not have the athletes up front to protect Shedeur Sanders. He got sacked 7 times. That's the most sacks in a single game for Oregon since 2017. But you know what, Andrew? I don't care. I am a huge Colorado fan.
How?
I love what Coach Prime is doing because 10 million people watched that football game, although it was over, dead in the water after 4 minutes.
Who cares?
I care because he's making people angry, and I like to see it.
You're not putting up trophies in Boulder because you got 10 million people to watch the football game.
You're getting 5-star recruits in Boulder.
They're not coming when you lose by 40 to Oregon.
This is a team that won a game last year. This is one of the worst Power 5 programs in the 21st century, and Deion Sanders, one of the greatest athletes in American sports history, has revitalized the hype and the hoopla, and I'm here for it, regardless of that result.
It doesn't matter how much hype you have to win trophies, and they're not
okay, Dan,
remotely
how you doing, Dan Lanning? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, Dan Lanning was unbelievable because his team played football and Deion Sanders' team didn't.
Okay, there is such a huge talent gap there. I don't understand.
Well, that's the problem.
But Deion Sanders has made this team remarkably better through one season.
And still, he has miles to go.
Of course he does, but people still care. Recruits still care. He treats those players with respect and passion, and I can't wait to see what he does next. I know I'm in the minority. I do not care.
Well, it certainly isn't going to happen this year for the Buffaloes in terms of putting up hardware in the trophy case out in Boulder. Two teams that had serious hopes to bring home some hardware this year in the ACC. Clemson and Florida State, the two early frontrunners to make it to the ACC title game, battled. Already one loss in the L column for the Tigers, and this week it turned into two. Another late game blunder for the Tigers, just like the Irish, and an overtime loss to Florida State.
I understand Clemson might have lost this game more than Florida State won it, but I still really like the Noles after this one. I understand last week Boston College a little bit scary, but that's a good Eagles team, people. That is a good, hard-fighting Eagles team. Okay, all jokes aside, Jordan Travis is legit, right? He threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was airing it out to that guy, Keon Coleman, who's a beast, Michigan State transfer. And that's my point, Andrew. You look at Clemson, where are the transfers? Where's the NIL? There's NIL. There's none of it. Dabo Swinney doesn't want to adjust, and his team is suffering because of it.
Right, and Clemson has turned in my opinion, into a team that's one of those schools that's really hoping one year you get the group and contend for a national championship.
He's still banking on true freshmen.
Right, as opposed to the 5 years ago, they were playing Alabama every single year for a title. It's turned into a team that once every 5 or 10 years might be able to compete, Ian. But for Florida State, how impressive really is this? Because we mentioned that Clemson... Are you, though?
Yes, because they hadn't beaten Clemson on the road since 2013.
Right, but
I think this game officially passes the torch to Florida State as the new power in the ACC.
Sure it does, but Trevor Lawrence isn't out there on the field for the Tigers. And you mentioned a Noles fan base that really, after a Week 1 win against LSU, thinks national championship is in the cards for the Noles this year.
College football playoff is.
Right,
they're going to roll right
but
to it.
Can they contend? It's not like a 7-point overtime win over Clemson tells me that they can compete at the national level.
They had a great month. I think if they can get to the dance, they can win it. It's going to be a little challenging.
Well, it gets a whole lot easier after those first 4 wins. But once you get there, you still got to win, and I don't think they can.
I think they can. They've got a great deep aerial attack, and people forget Jared Verse is that guy defensively. Alabama's defense, whew, Dallas Turner, he's good. He replaced Will Anderson easily, and that defense was dominant against Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's crew got smoked 24-10. Alabama, an early season loss to Texas, but Andrew, is Nick Saban's team back on track?
Nick Saban's team will never not be back on track, Ian. This team will never not be a top 10 team under Nick Saban, and I'll tell you why. He has enough good players, and he's one of the best coaches in college football, that at the level that he recruits, they'll never not be competing. The only difference is they had to change the approach this year. This isn't your 2019, 2021 Alabama team that can throw it for 500 yards and score 7 touchdowns in a game. This is, you got to go back a few years to the Jalen Hurts years, the Greg McElroy years. You're keeping it on the ground, running the ball, eating up the clock, keeping your defense on the sideline, and a 14-point win in the SEC. For the style that Alabama has to play this year, that's handling business.
The SEC West stinks.
They do.
Right? And even though Jalen Milroe is not there as a passer just yet, he's got talent. So to be honest with you, although I think they breezed through Ole Miss and LSU, the other team in the SEC West that they're going to have to contend with, I think that they still have an opportunity, just barely, to make the college football playoff. This is a low-ceiling team. They have a good defense, and I love Jace McClellan. He proved a lot in the backfield in that win.
A&M, LSU in the SEC West. You might meet Georgia in the SEC title game, and all you are, if you make it there, 1 win away from another college football playoff appearance. All right, that's it for some big games from this past week, but we've got a big game on the other side of a break. The Juicer is next. Sam Reis joins us to face off against Ian Nicholas. Stick with us as No Pulp is back in just a minute.
fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
With the groove, show proof, keep it smooth as I bust the move. Where you step in swiftly, with me keep up. If not, just stop, pop a squat, put your feet up, read up, pay attention, listen to the melody. Remember what you heard, got my words to the spell of me. Top notch, got them all jumping like hopscotch, or jumping rope like double dutch in the air. Show me what you got, keep it hot like a heater. You thinking you a treat, cause you're sweet, but I'm sweeter. Leader of the pack, cause they all stay behind me. I'm old school, you don't skip tracks, you rewind me. Find me, working on my craft.
Welcome back to No Pulp. I'm Andrew Selover, he's Ian Nicholas, and he is Sam Reis. Sam, welcome to the show. Have you ever been in the juicer before?
This is my first appearance, and I couldn't be more excited.
Rookie.
All right. We're hearing the chirps. We need to calm it down. We've got 4 questions still to answer. Do you know how this works, Sam?
I do, yes.
Okay, let's tell the fans how this works. 4 questions, each of them answer. I tell you who the right answer is. First 3 worth 1 point, last one worth 2.
Yeah.
And at the end of this, we get a winner. Let's start with our first question of the week. The worst individual performance from week 4 in college football. Ian, we go to you first.
Although I still believe in Colorado, and I still think Shedeur Sanders is a great player and maybe even worthy of a first-round pick in the NFL, he stunk. He was embarrassed. He got sacked 7 times, 21 yards of total offense in the first half. I know he didn't have Travis Hunter. I know he had a makeshift offensive line, but he just did not make great decisions in that game. I like it to just be a little bit more competitive, and Shedeur Sanders, the stock way down this week.
All right, so Ian's a fan of Colorado, but also not a fan of Shedeur Sanders. Sam?
I hate to break it to you, Ian, but there was someone who had a much worse performance, and that was Cade McNamara.
Who?
5 for 14, just 42 yards for Iowa.
That's like a great stat line for
blown out
Iowa.
by Penn State. Well, listen, this is McNamara is a guy who just 2 years ago led Michigan past Penn State at Beaver Stadium en route to Michigan, ultimately making the college football playoff.
And then they replaced him.
True, but he did that at Penn State. He should have been more ready for a big game environment like this. To have that pathetic of a performance and get benched for Deacon Hill in the 4th quarter, completely unacceptable. Pathetic performance.
We can stop on the piling on Cade McNamara. It didn't ask. There were no qualifications, Ian. You didn't have to be like a superstar and go out there and just put on a bad performance.
Well, Cade McNamara is not a great
but
player.
He went 5
and he
for
stunk.
14, Ian. Shedeur Sanders wasn't overmatched.
22
His team
completions.
was. He was sacked
He's the
7
leader of
times.
that team.
Point to Sam, 1-0 to Mr. Reis. And we talked enough about bad things happening. Let's go to the best performances of the week. Sam, an individual that really stuck out to you.
Well, you were talking about how bad Shedeur Sanders and Colorado were.
Very bad.
How about the other side of things? Bo Nix and how good he was. Nix went 28 for 33 in the
He's like
passing
30 years
game.
old.
Okay, that's a completion percentage of 85%. I don't care how old he is.
Cool.
Bo Nix was ready for this big game against Colorado. The spotlight was on this game. He delivered, always looked calm, delivered the right passes, made the correct decisions, and all in all, it was a seamless performance from Bo Nix.
Yeah, so he won Pac-12 Player of the Week, right? He
Well,
won it? No, he didn't. Okay, so that
most
goes
accurate.
That went to Cam Ward.
Okay.
And you're probably wondering, who is Cam Ward? He is the most underrated quarterback in college football. And he's the only guy who led his ranked team to an upset against another ranked team in the Pac-2 battle. Oregon State, Washington State. 80% completion rate, he did that. Over 400 yards, he did that. And he did it against actually a good team. Right? You guys were whining about Colorado being bad.
Well,
He
you were
did it
saying how
against
good
a top
Colorado was.
15.
Come on.
Yeah, I like him in the future. I don't like him now.
All right.
This guy went from FCS Incarnate Word to a top 15 team in the nation. He's got that juice, and he was a little bit better than Bo Nix against a bit of a better team.
I like that. FCS to FBS, and he did it in a big moment in a close game. Sam, that game was over before they stepped foot on the field. Point to
Because of
Ian
Nix.
Nicholas to equalize it 1-1. All right. let's go back to just some bad football that might go on in the future. We've seen some good teams start out of the gate hot, but which team has already reached its peak in 2023, Ian?
This is easy. I mean, Ryan Day told me this one after the game. Not me personally, he told the whole world, this is one of our best wins in program history. What are you talking about? It's week 4. Championships aren't won in week 4. They're won when you beat Michigan. Oh wait, no, this team doesn't beat Michigan. What about Penn State? Everyone's talking about how good they are. You just told me how they shut down Cade McNamara. You got to beat them, Coach Day.
They can.
After the game, he said, where's Lou Holtz? You know where Lou Holtz is? He's polishing his 1988 national championship ring, and you're whining that nobody believes in you as a coach because you time and time again can't get it done. You blew a 10-0 lead in Notre Dame, and you're lucky you don't have a loss right now.
Sam?
Wow, this might be a bold take in your opinion, but it really isn't. I'm going with USC. That's right, the University of Southern California.
Not South Carolina?
Not South Carolina.
Okay, whatever.
They might
to
have
be
picked
frank
two.
with you. Listen, this USC team, they're 4-0. They better enjoy it because it's going downhill from here. I've seen enough from this Trojans defense. That was a pathetic performance from their defense against a bad Arizona State team. That game should
got a
have
star,
been
too.
competitive. Yeah, okay. I know you love Arizona State and that quarterback, but that's beyond the point, Ian. I was warned in the opener against San Jose State that this defense was a little iffy. I've given them 4 games. They're averaging about 3 to 4 touchdowns conceded
All right,
against
enough talk about
They
that.
have the best player in the
Come on.
country.
It's
Pipe
all
it down.
downhill.
Pipe. I said enough. Steady the ship
right,
over
all
here.
right.
Enough talk about San
Yikes.
Jose State. But we will tell you who these teams have upcoming. Ohio State, a young quarterback.
Yes.
Penn State on the horizon at home, and that young quarterback will continue to get better after his win at Notre Dame and beat Penn State, and that will be a step up for Ohio State. Colorado, Arizona, and then at Notre Dame, that's a loss for USC, and that marks the downfall for the Trojans. Point number 2 on the day for Sam Reis. He leads it 2-1.
Didn't know you love California so much.
I don't love California.
It's just
but,
the facts, Ian.
Yep, it's 2-1 Sam Reis over Ian Nicholas right now, but the last one's worth 2 points. So that means that Ian can get the win if he gets this final point. Our last question, which team has yet to break out? Sam, you answer this one first.
The Michigan Wolverines have yet to break out. Now, hear me out. It's been a little bit of a slow start for Michigan. I get that they've gotten the job done.
They just rolled Rutgers.
Yeah, they rolled them after a very slow first half. This was a 1-possession game throughout the first half. The week before that, it was a subpar performance against Bowling Green where J.J. McCarthy threw 3 picks. We're seeing steady improvement. Harbaugh's back on the sidelines. That's a huge boost. And this is nothing new for this Michigan team. Last year in September, they had a close contest with Maryland, which was kind of random. Then later in the campaign, they blew out the likes of Penn State. And later on, had another big result. This Michigan team, ready for the big moments come November, they're just getting started with a great defense and McCarthy getting rolling.
Andrew, what state are you from?
Georgia.
Georgia. This team is 4-0 and the best team
You're
in the
singing
country.
bad.
Didn't know he could sing.
I can sing.
That's not
and I
part
can
of the
tell
deal.
you, this team struggled to play the Alabama Birmingham Blazers, and then they pulled away at halftime. They looked like they were going to lose to the real USC, South Carolina, and then they pulled away at halftime. I am not the biggest believer in Carson Beck, but I am a huge believer in Kirby Smart, who has proved time and time again this guy reloads rosters better than anybody in college football, and that team is a powerhouse. That's just, they understand, like Andrew and I were talking about earlier, the SEC blows this year. They're a little confident right now. They're not playing like a national championship winner right now, but when it really matters, it will mean a little bit more to the Bulldogs.
Singing was not factored into this decision. I'll let you know that.
It was
we
a
can
heck of
debate
an
after the
effort.
show on how good it was or not. I will say, terrible answers for both of you.
What?
Terrible answers. These two teams are at the top of the rankings.
Michigan's been
who
a bit
cares?
sluggish.
Terrible answers. I don't think I
They're
want to give you
sleepwalking.
or you a point.
Are you serious?
The problem is they've told me that I have to award 2 points.
Correct.
So
That's how the game works.
here's how I give out my points here. Michigan still has some tough teams on the schedule. Georgia has absolutely nobody to play left. They never had anybody to play. It's a cupcake schedule that lends Georgia straight into the SEC title game, and it lends Ian Nicholas straight into a juicer win. Sam Reis 0-1 in the juicer. Ian Nicholas 2-1 with a 3-2 victory. All right, that'll do it for the juicer. We'll keep these two apart as the show rounds on. We've already heard Ian Nicholas sing. When we come back, we hear Ian Nicholas bark. All bark, no bite is next. We'll tell you who's frauds in college football.
Come on, it's not that hard.
My big man fingers are having a problem with these little tiny buttons.
Whoa, watch it there. Your blood pressure's gonna go through the roof.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to learn how to get it down. Instead, it keeps going up.
High blood pressure can increase the risk for heart attack or stroke. Learn how to keep yours at a healthy range.
Ever hear a voice command? Just say text barbershop to 97779.
That's not what I said.
Just give me that. Now my blood pressure's up.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Don't worry, I won't be singing anymore. Welcome back into No Pulp. Ian Nicholas alongside Andrew Selover. We are going to get a little loud, though. We're going to start barking in here. Because
You got a good bark?
Oh, that's not a bark. I don't got a bark. My dog doesn't bark.
That's terrible.
Okay.
Your singing was okay. That's terrible.
I'm 1 for 2. One, the juicer sound effects. That's not me. But what is me is telling you how it is. I'm a straight shooter. He's a straight shooter. We're going to tell you which teams are barking a little bit too much, and they're actually a little bit fraudulent. Andrew, who's a national championship contender but you don't really believe in right now?
It's the #1 team in the country, a team that loves to bark, the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia, not that good this year, Ian. Beck at quarterback, he stinks. He's not good at all. When Georgia faces a true opponent and a true test, the Bulldogs will not prevail. The problem for UGA is they won't be tested all season.
No.
They'll cruise, control right into the SEC title game. They'll face an Alabama team that's been tested, that's lost to Texas, and that will roll right through them on the ground and punish Georgia and prove that Nick Saban is still better than Kirby Smart.
While Nick Saban is the best coach in the land, Lincoln Riley is one of the best. His team's not playing like it right now. USC is as fraudulent as it gets. And Sam Reis was right. It's a shame he didn't win the juicer. You really made a dumb decision there. But my goodness, you know how much I love my friend Drew Pine at Arizona State. But you should not have let Drew Pine get back into the game against the Trojans. I like Caleb Williams. I love Zachariah Brown. He is the new Tyreek Hill. That is everything this team has. Everything else is mediocre. I like Oregon better than them. I even like Washington better than them right now. And I already talked about how much I like Washington State. They're pretty good too. This team is fraudulent.
Two great picks, Oregon and Washington. I love that out of you. This team doesn't like to bark. Instead, they like to chop. And it's the Florida State Seminoles that are fraudulent to me. They're faking it, and then they're not going to make it. The expectations have to be college football playoff at this point. Through the first 4 games, FSU's put together a good resume. Win against LSU.
A great resume.
Win against Clemson. The problem is they're playing down to the level of the opponent. Boston College, 18 penalties, and still almost beat Florida State. Clemson did everything right, better in all categories, and a kick away from 33 yards out from winning. Florida State will be tested against teams from other conferences and will not prevail.
Yeah, Clemson did everything right outside of giving up a touchdown on a turnover. I don't know how you overlooked that one, Andrew. My final one. It's so easy. Michigan. Michigan thinks they're so good. They've rallied around Jim Harbaugh, who got suspended by his own school, and that's been their rallying cry, which is really weird if you ask me. And then there's Cade McNamara. Sam Reis brought up a good point. This guy threw 3 picks against Bowling Green? Are you kidding me? He thinks he's Joe Cool. He is not cool at all. He's a hot shot. I think he's overconfident. They have to rely on that run game, and if a run game doesn't work, they're toast.
That's a fair point. I think they'll lose to Ohio State this year.
I don't like Ryan Day, but I agree. We're going to wrap up shop here on No Pulp. We've still got a few more things to highlight. We've got some huge plays and also some big words to share when we return on the other side.
They said a bottle was just a bottle. That no one would ever notice me. But I knew I could be more. That one day, I would make people smile.
Welcome back here to No Pulp. It's time for the best part of the show. It's the plays of the week from week 4 in college football. And I'll get you a good one that I know you missed because I'm pretty sure you were not watching Florida against Charlotte. Let's go ahead and show you arguably the catch of the year that we've already seen just 4 weeks in from Ricky Pearsall. He leaps up, and how did he catch it with one hand? Pretty sure that's a targeting hit, and he still holds on with the right hand, jumping as high as he can, like he's got glue on those gloves, and just wraps it into the body and holds on through 2 hits. What a play by Ricky Pearsall.
You know, pass catchers are talented, but something that they need is a quarterback. And a quarterback that can get it done with his right hand and get it done just as well as his left hand. I'm a lefty, by the way, so I love this. UNC's Drake May. He's one of my favorite players in the country. And I know I already mentioned the quarterback from Arizona State, but really, this is one of my favorite players in the country. Look at this throw. Scramble drill. Left-handed, easy. That's not Steve Young. That is Drake May. And whatever team gets him in the NFL draft next year is not getting a consolation prize for Caleb Williams. They're getting a player that's almost as good and has that Patrick Mahomes-esque ability.
I'll send you from one ranked undefeated team in North Carolina to another. I take you back to Eugene for my final word of the show. Sure, the Ducks embarrassed the Buffaloes on the field. We've talked about that, though. We have not talked about the fact that Dan Lanning absolutely humiliated Deion Sanders with his pre-game speech. Forget the game being over by the opening kickoff. It was over before the Ducks even took the field. Take a listen.
Rooted in substance, not flash. Rooted in substance. Today, we talk with our pads. You talk with your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins. There's a difference, right? There's a difference. Right? This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass. Right? It's going to be played on the grass. Let's go.
Dan Lanning said this game is played on grass, and then his team went on the field and told Deion Sanders to touch grass. Dan Lanning was speaking for coaches far and wide across the country. They're fed up with the antics in Boulder. Deion Sanders said pregame he thought his team was ready to compete, and boy, was he wrong. I'll leave you with one more thought as well. Dan Lanning welcomed the cameras for the TV crew into the locker room to record that speech. He knew from the get-go his team was going to blow out the Buffaloes, and boy did they ever. It's time to invest in Oregon football. Buy stock in the Ducks, and buy stock now.
You know why he invited the cameras in there, Andrew? Because he wants the Alabama job. He wants to get out of Eugene as much as he possibly can. For me, I'm going to kind of keep it in the Pac-12. Shout out to the Pac-2 with my good buddies, Oregon State, and a great team in Washington State. At the end of the day, these two squads are trying to leave, and they're trying to welcome relegation to the ranks of college football. And at the end of the day, I think relegation would be perfect for college football.
Well, if you know one thing, if the Pac-12's in our final words, that means they're doing something right. That does it for No Pulp. I'm Andrew Selover. He's Ian Nicholas. Watch some Pac-12 football for us.